Well, hello, and thank you for joining Ella Nethersole and me, Alan Peaford, as we bring you the latest from the emerging aerospace and defence markets of India, the Middle East and Africa. We're going to be looking ahead at the live MRO Middle East event and hearing how Etihad Engineering is preparing. We're also going to be looking at plans for a new alternative airport for the Cape Town area of South Africa and find out about cargo handling in Zambia. Meanwhile, in Turkey, we see the firefighting breakthrough with an indigenous drone, while in South Sudan, the air navigation capabilities have leapt ahead with a modernisation programme. So join us after this short break.
Welcome back, and here are the news headlines. Indian Airlines are expected to post a consolidated loss of $4.1 billion this fiscal year, taking the total losses of 2 years to around $8 billion as a result of the pandemic so far, reports consultancy and research firm CAPA. CAPA expects domestic passenger traffic to be around 80 to 95 million in 2021-2022, as against to 52.5 million in the previous financial year. ACIA Aero Leasing has completed the mandate to deliver a fleet of 3 ATR-72 aircraft to support the commercial launch of Nigeria's Green Africa. Babawande Afolabi, founder and CEO of Green Africa, said that receiving its third aircraft signifies Green Africa's readiness to enter into service. Emirates will introduce the first scheduled Airbus A380 service to Bahrain this month. This is the first time an airline has operated the double-decker on a regular scheduled basis to the kingdom. It demonstrates the operational readiness of Bahrain's new airport to accommodate the Super Jumbo. Airbus has doubled down on its response to the COVID-19 crisis in India, delivering more than 36 tons of additional medical equipment to the Indian Red Cross Society, and deploying humanitarian flights to move supplies from abroad as well as within the country. Airbus is delivering oxygen plants, ventilators, oxygen concentrators, breathing machines, and mobile intensive care units. An A350 test aircraft delivered part of the consignment last week. The Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, NIGCOMSAT, the Agency for Air Navigation Safety in Africa and Madagascar, ASECNA, and Thales Alenia Space have jointly proven the benefit of the satellite-based augmentation system to aviation navigation and safety. The trio carried out a demo flight between Douala and Kribi in the Cameroon last week. They flew a helicopter at low altitude along a low-level route, linking 2 point-in-space approaches, provided from satellites to guide the helicopter to the Douala airport and point near the oil platforms off the Kribi coast. India's low-cost airline Indigo will reportedly bring back the leave without pay system for its senior employees. The move comes as India and its passenger traffic suffer from the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The air carrier reportedly told its senior employees that they would be subject to 4 days per month leave without pay until September 2021. And finally, a new milestone in sustainable aviation was achieved last week, when a rescue helicopter flew on sustainable aviation fuel for the first time. Operated by the German non-profit organisation Adat Luftrichtung, the Airbus H145 rescue helicopter had its Ariel 2E engine ceremonial refuelled with biofuel at the air rescue station in Munich. The helicopter was using a second-hand generation biofuel, the SAF of choice for the aviation industry. Well, let's hope we get to see our operators in our regions follow that lead.
Thanks, Ella. It's really good to see the whole industry looking at this sustainability and acting on it. Well, it's also great that the MRO show is going ahead as a physical event and opens in Dubai next Tuesday. The sector has had a rough time over the last year as the normal service requirements of aircraft largely disappeared or were put back indefinitely. So what do you do when your business drops off a cliff? Well, if you're Etihad Airways Engineering, you innovate. Well, we're joined from Abu Dhabi now by Frederic Dupont, the Vice President of Technical Sales and Customer Service. Hi, Fred. Now, you're going to be one of the leading exhibitors at the event next week, and it's great to be back, eh? Now, I'm intrigued. Amongst other initiatives, your team launched a state-of-the-art face mask production facility, and that seems a long way from engines and airframes.
Yes, you're right, Alan. Very, very long way indeed. But I think, listen, um, as we say, or as I like to say it, every challenge, brings an opportunity. And I think, dealing with the pandemic, we effectively drove a lot of initiatives, and it really pressured or pressure test, our ability to adapt, to changing context environment, and one of the things that we just first looked at is obviously how we could protect our people, and obviously face mask was one of the very critical measures against COVID. So we did that for Etihad Engineering as well as Etihad, the airline. But interestingly enough, now we're what I think we're about to reach about 4 million masks produced. And well, we started with one customer, which was effectively ourselves. Now I think we just signed up actually our 15th customer, and by the way, and counting. So by the way, if you want mask, we can we surely place orders, okay, but nothing less than 1,000, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know where to come to when we need our replacements, thank you. But do you see any of these pandemic practices or developments being part of your regular changes post COVID?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. They are really the things that are very specifically pandemic related, okay, which we had to do to indeed protect, number one, our people, and number two, effectively the business. But then there's a lot of things that we were already doing before that, and this is more part of our, call it our tactical roadmap. But now with the pandemic, on the, for example, on the STC side, the engineering services, we we effectively use this to launch which, I mean, a lot of people did the same thing, which is the mini P2F, the passenger to freighter mini cargo conversions. We did it to support our airlines. We did to support other customers of ours as well. So you need to be able to give flexibility to customers these days. I mean, most of the airlines, they're struggling to forecast, to see what's a month ahead. I think that's usually important. And we as a business, I think, is one of the things that we're doing quite well is the flexibility and the adaptability piece. The business is the business; it will remain as is. But some of the way to do business, and how we support our customers definitely will change. Okay, some of which will come back after the hopefully the post COVID will come back. But when you look at, there are things that unfortunately I wish I could talk about, but I can't announce because we're still in the midst of, I should say, not in the midst, but almost at the end of closing the deal. But we as part of an MRO, and I think every MRO can probably say the same thing. We wanted to ensure that we diversify our portfolio.
So you mentioned an announcement. Are you going to be revealing more of that at MRO Middle East show next week?
Yeah. Listen, I would have loved to. Unfortunately, I don't think we will be ready for this announcement. So it will come shortly after. So we'll wait for the next one. But listen, we're all excited to get back into an MRO show. I know I was not able, unfortunately, to attend the one in the Americas, and while we probably forecast that it is not going to be as big of a show as it usually is, but nonetheless, it's an ability for us to get back, on the forefront of things. Actually, I was going to say shake hands with people. I'm going to say fist pump people, but exactly. But at least be there and meet again with our customers, peers, competitors. I mean, listen, the industry, the aerospace industry is a huge but effectively small industry. It's like a family. So yeah, we need those kind of things, and really looking forward to it.
Well, I know our team will be there and will be hounding you for updates. So good luck at the show, Fred.
Yeah, not a problem. You can try. No, pleasure. Thank you very much, Alan. Very good to see you.
Well, there's free to attend conference sessions and the opportunity to meet face to face. It's at the Dubai World Trade Center. Now, industry professionals can register for a pass online. It's free. And if you can't get there, watch out for our GCC editor Jill Stockbridge and our MRO editor Chuck Grieve, who will be producing a rap video from the show. Well, while there has, of course, been major interest in big international airports, analysts are seeing opportunities for smaller regional airports to come into their own. Africa is no different. And in South Africa, there are plans to develop a former World War II military base, and more recently it became a small GA base and becoming an international secondary airport for the Cape Town area, to do for the Western Cape what Lanseria has done for Johannesburg. Robin Rabec reports.
Cape Town, the mother city of South Africa, is set for the development of a second major airport suitable for general aviation and to match future expansion of the Western Cape region. Beyond the city limits, the urban creep of Cape Town is moving eastwards towards the pristine winelands and wheat fields of the Western Cape. Historically, during the Second World War, the South African Air Force acquired the land that became the Versantekraal Aerodrome, bordering the municipality of Durbanville, 50 kilometers east of Cape Town. Built as a fortress aerodrome in the early part of World War II, Versantekraal fell under the Coastal Air Defence Command. A detachment of twin-engine Lockheed Ventura aircraft from 23 Squadron of the South African Air Force was stationed at the airfield to patrol the South African coastline. Following the cessation of the Second World War, the aerodrome was registered as a civilian airport. But in 1993, the land was sold with airport rights to a civilian airport operator. Subsequently, and in 2020, the Cape Winelands Airport Company Limited, a public company headed by a group of Cape Town property developers, purchased the property for the development of an alternate airport to serve the inland regions of the Western Cape. Nick Ferguson is a director of the company and the project leader for the development of the new airport.
Our vision for this airport is a viable second airport for Cape Town in the long term. It's not a short-term thing that takes years. If you look at Lanseria, it's been around since early 70s, and is what it is today. 50 years down the track, I suppose. So these things take time, but I see it as a complementary airport for Cape Town International. Its primary focus will be on general aviation as a start, with maybe small domestic scheduled flights. I'm talking up to 20 seats. After that, with improvements to and extensions to runways, it can be an international airport in the future.
And how do you then see your relationship with AXA?
I don't think we'd be in competition with AXA, with Cape Town International to start at all. I think we will supplement them. General aviation is struggling in Cape Town International. They don't want general aviation there.
That's an interesting point, General. And so how do you see, what sort of type of aircraft in general aviation and corporate charter do you imagine? As I mentioned specifically corporate charter, do you see the owners of aircraft basing their aircraft here?
Once this place is fixed up and its image is improved and the runways are resurfaced, they'll move just because it's more convenient, and it's more personal, I suppose.
400.
Dense fog is prone to affect Cape Town's international air traffic movements. When the airport is reported to be fog-bound and the runway visual range is restrictive, aircraft and crew that are not authorized to conduct Category 3 autolands face increased prospects of diversion to alternate airports.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10, retard.
If Cape Town is severely hampered by a blanket of dense fog, it can be that the old Versantekraal Aerodrome, just 14 nautical miles northeast from Cape Town, at 400-foot elevation could be Victor Mike Charlie in visual conditions with clear skies.
I don't think it's a coincidence that they chose this site in 1943. It is and was the best position for an airport, by virtue of its topography, away from mountains.
Positioned only 14 nautical miles from Cape Town Airport, slots for instrument approach training onto the Cape Town ILS will be easier for air traffic controllers and flight schools to regulate, with their visionary ideas for the development of a major second airport for Cape Town. The owners of the new Cape Winelands Airport are creating exciting alternatives for general and corporate aviation in the Western Cape of South Africa.
Now, it may have taken half a century for Lanseria to have proved its worth, but it now plays a serious part in South Africa's regional and domestic operations. And it really would be great to see the Winelands development for smaller commercial traffic and what looks like a really good opportunity for business aircraft, general aviation, and of course, training. Now we're going to head just a little bit further north for our next report. We know cargo handling through the pandemic has been a challenge across Africa, and our Africa Special Correspondent, Keith Mwanalushi, has been taking a close look at Zambia. After the demise of Zambia's national airline, Zambia Airways, more than 25 years ago, subsidiary National Air Charters battled on for 5 years, focusing its attention away from flying cargo flights to ground handling and freight management. At the turn of the millennium, it went into private hands and flourished. It's now called NAC 2000, and Keith called up with the company's managing director, Jonathan Lewis, to find out how it fared during the pandemic.
Jonathan, welcome and thank you for speaking to us. How has COVID affected the air cargo handling business in Zambia?
Hi, Keith. Thank you. Well, obviously, we've been severely impacted. The cargo business is down 20% on the previous year. We really went through some bleak times at the beginning of the pandemic. We had local demand for export cargo, yet we had no flights coming in to take the cargo out. Thankfully, things turned around pretty quickly, and we then had strong demand for import medical equipment. So we were then able to utilize the return flights for our outgoing cargo. So yes, the cargo business has been severely impacted both in volumes and also with respect to some of the changes we've had to make within our operations. I would say one of the most notable changes would have been adapting to new procedures to handle cargo in cabin. We went from maybe 10 lifts with a high loader to lifting 1,000 pieces of cargo plus by hand. So, certainly adapting to that, training staff, etc., has been a massive challenge. But I think we're resilient in this part of the world, and we're able to adapt quickly to the challenges and conform, obviously, at the same time to safety standards. So, yeah.
That's interesting to know. And Jonathan, looking at the new airport infrastructure that's popping up across the country in terms of new airports and terminals, what opportunities does this present for NAC 2000 going forward?
Okay, so we feel that this presents us with many opportunities. We obviously hope that the new infrastructure will bring more volume eventually. So what it does is position Zambia in the region as a hub. And we expect that as we get over the pandemic, we will have more and more tourist traffic, more cargo traffic. NAC 2000 has also been developing its own facility in Lusaka to complement the efforts of government. And we see bigger opportunities as well, specifically for cargo in the Copper Belt, which has a really nice piece of infrastructure coming up, and will provide for freighter aircraft and wide-bodied aircraft, which has never been seen in that part of the world, or the country even.
That's great. Jonathan, thank you for joining us today.
There's an old saying that necessity is the mother of invention, and Turkey has certainly proved that, with a dual challenge of raging forest fires and a worsening relationship with the USA that choked the supply chain of military equipment. But Turkish Aerospace took just 18 months to develop and deliver a multi-role UAV called Askunga, which not only can perform uninterrupted multi-role intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance and attack missions with high payload capacity, it can also adapt its high payload to carry out firefighting. And last week, the first of these aircraft joined the General Directorate of Forestry at Sakiopasha Airport. It can operate beyond line of sight and has already broken flight hours records on station. Now look out for more on this on our Defence Monthly show at the end of the month. Now finally, some more good news from Africa. For many years, concerns have been expressed about Africa's air navigation services in certain parts of the continent. One of those parts was South Sudan. But an airspace modernisation programme appears to be turning things round, as the country is opening its sovereign airspace for the first time, and it's doing it quickly and efficiently. We're joined now by Tom Perkins, the CEO of NavPass, the company that partners with governments to optimise and monetise their sovereign airspace. So Tom, that's a challenge. Has it taken a long time, and how willing has everybody been to get this together?
Actually, it's been quite an adventure. It's a partnership between NavPass and the South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority. It originally started out as an agreement for us to collect fees to show them how to use their navigation fee system, follow the ICAO doctrine, and collect navigation fees, and then reinvest into safety and efficiency. That conversation happened pre-COVID. Very early 2021, things had changed. There's a sense of urgency. There's everybody's looking for revenue, and quite frankly, South Sudan had been under the gun from ICAO to complete the stand-up of their sovereign airspace, which they had been working on for several years. They were given a timeline by ICAO and looked around and were lacking financial and technical resources to accomplish that timeline, and saw our proposal laying on the desk, picked up the phone and asked us if we could help them, and we said yes. And that was January. So we took us 30 days to get the paperwork organized. This was a first time a PPP had ever been accomplished in South Sudan. So it was also a frontier for that. We signed on March 15th, although we were on the ground already, with the idea that we would get the sovereign airspace up in 90 to 120 days. So yes, we hit the ground running.
Well, that's some going, Tom. What was the support like within SSCAA?
They had a copy of an old AIP that they were trying to draft from that was not up to date. So we stepped in and did everything. So we sat with them in a number of meetings with South Sudan Civil Aviation, led by Captain David Subeck, the CEO, amazing man, and his team, Captain David being the ATC director, and worked some 16-hour days for better part of a month and got everything done. So if you'll look at their website, that's probably the best way to see what's been accomplished. Everything's up there. The AIP, it's the latest in EAIP, so it's all electronic. So on the 17th of June, they take over the Juba TMA, as well as the airspace below 24.5 across the country. And we've in the process of putting up VHF radios, ADS-B antennas. I mean, we're moving very quickly to get this all accomplished.
So, Tom, I find it quite incredible because, you and I have both been at conferences around the continent in different places where the long and winding road goes on and on and on about the challenges. And yet you've done this in a period of 6 months or less. So is it possible for other African countries, if they get their heads together, their acts together and the right people on board, to actually deliver like this?
Oh, absolutely, Alan. And I think it's a perfect time in history as well, Alan. I mean, you got all this modern technology that's coming, being invested by the West. The GPS, the GPNS, the performance-based navigation program that ICAO has been pushing for the last few years has really become refined. And all of the airlines that have been produced in the last 10 years are built to conform to the performance-based navigation, to using separation for ATC, to using GPS satellites for navigation, right down to a fairly low approach. And that gets everything off the ground. And it really is an extraordinary process. So it's a proof, just like you said, Alan, that this can be done very quickly and without much investment.
Well, South Sudan said this week that it's an important step for them in order to bring people to the country so they can actually get there. Now, you've been there. Is it going to be great when it opens up? Is it going to be the next place to go?
Africa continues to surprise me. The richness of the land, it's sad that the news tells the story of the war. The war's been done for a long time. I guess that's all I hear about. It's an incredible place. And I think, like every place else in Africa, once people truly understand what it actually is, and the people are extraordinary.
All right, sounds fantastic. And Tom, well done for doing that job, and good luck next week when everything's out and published. And we look forward to putting South Sudan on our list of places to go to. Well, that's Tom Perkins, CEO of NavPass in South Sudan. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a bit more positive about where we're going. While most of us have been locked down somewhere, it's good to know that there are people out there innovating and opening the way for us to bounce back. Now, don't forget to get to that MRO show in Dubai if you can, and book your exhibition space as well at the World Defence Show, as the early bird deadline is very, very near to closing. But most of all, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defence Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.